This particular question, Christian, how do you tell a 9-year-old who has been constantly listening to Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, and the like, that type of music, that the music is not good for them, assuming that the child has not been exposed to Christianity or any type of religion at all? That is quite a doozy. The reality is, whether you're a Christian or not, the music that we listen to impacts our souls because we are human beings. And so if we can articulate clearly the problems with music, for instance, I talked with a young lady yesterday who was listening to Taylor Swift, and she said, "What's wrong with listening to Taylor Swift?" And I said, "So you listen to her quite a bit?" "Yes, I do." I said, "So what's the subject matter of most of Taylor Swift's songs?" And she said, "Love." I said, "What kind of love?" "Well, I don't know." I said, "Kind of like boyfriend-girlfriend love, that type of thing?" "Yes." I said, "Well, I happen to know quite a few of her songs, and I've studied the lyrics, and there's one song where she talks about, if my parents knew what I was doing with this boy, they'd kill me." In other words, she was out kissy-kissy, touchy-touchy, and she shouldn't have been. And a lot of the subject matter of Taylor Swift's songs are maturing young ladies in their thinking in what's called worldly love or a lustful love. It's not true biblical love. And so when we look at singers like Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber, and he's got all these different songs, he's the male version of Taylor Swift, and she's the female version of Justin Bieber. It's all about boyfriend, girlfriend, and now I'm going to get revenge on you because you broke up with me. And the reality is, what they're exposing in their lyrics is that young people are not ready to have these types of relationships. The reality is we each need to grow up into a place in a good Christian home if we're able, if we have that opportunity, to be raised and taught what true love is. And what we mistake in the world is that lust and sex is love. And while it is a small component and a very special component of love, it is not love as defined in the Bible. And so we can talk about the syncopated beats and rhythms, and those, of course, that we talked about, a young lady or young man does not need to be listening to this type of music because it releases gonadotrophins in the body, which are sex hormones. So we have young ladies, young men, or even old men or older ladies that are listening to these syncopated beats and rhythms, and also the polyrhythmic elements that are stimulating sex hormones. It's hard enough to be going through puberty and keeping yourself pure for the Lord. Much more difficult when we add something into our listening that releases more sex hormones. So I would talk to the young person, get yourself educated first. I can't do it justice in a few moments with you, but get educated on the subject yourself, and then take some good, solid, ironclad principles and science to the young minds. What I found, honestly, is from about 9 years old to about 13 or 14 years old, this is the group that responds the best to this information. And if we can get them when they're young, and not to say, that's the devil's music, because what does that mean? If you can't clearly articulate what the challenges are neurologically, physiologically, and spiritually, even emotionally, then we could call anything the devil's music. So we need to be educated so we can educate them, even if they're non-Christians. That's the beginning of my answer.